Welcome to Voices of Care, real stories to inspire, uplift, and unite caregivers with hosts Maggie Linton and Carl Powell. Enjoy the conversation. Ready?
Great.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome to Voices of Care. I'm Maggie Linton along with Carl Powell, and our guest today is someone who just covers the board on helping others. It is Denise Nussbaum, and she wears many hats. But the hat we're going to begin with is her reading from her poem called The Fog. And it is the opening of Voices of Care book. Denise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, let's begin with The Fog.
Okay. I remember the warmth of your lap, a steady throne, the way you beam with pride at every milestone. I was your world back then, small, safe, and prized, before the rising conflict changed our lives. The day you made me leave, you took the light away. You took a different path, our family left to fray. The years of silence grew like walls between us. The seasons and distance turned family to dust. Forgiveness came with reflection and time, just as the fog moved in, slowly taking your mind. I watched from a distance as your reason began to slip. I lost my chance for one last steady grip. I carry the weight of the calls I didn't make, the guilt of staying back for my own heart's sake. But I hope you know, before the shadows took the rest, I remember the man you were when you were at your best. I forgive the leaving, and I pray you forgive the space. I'll always hold the memory of a smile on your face. It's all been mended now. Any problems have grown thin. Rest easy, Pop. I love you. Let's let the light back in.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's such a representative of how we feel. And the thing about when it's gone, you still continue to heal. Like you can still cry about it now. I was talking to someone about my mother yesterday and explaining, and I still can cry because I'm still healing. And that's our job in life, is to heal and heal with heart. Heal with your heart. Don't just go out there and say, okay, I'm better. Allow yourself that space to heal and give yourself grace. So that's a beautiful poem. I love that.
Thank you. I think it really reveals the struggle and the guilt, especially when, I don't know who of us had perfect relationships with their parents, but the guilt lasts just as long as the grief does, I think, so far for me. Still healing, apparently.
Yeah, still healing.
You know, one of the things that you have done to heal is by helping others. And that's what's so important about you. It didn't just stop with your dad, it continued on.
Oh, thank you. I get more than I give for sure. And all of our volunteers say the same thing. Every time we fill up a huge truck full of household goods and deliver them to our families, after 2 hours of heavy lifting, the volunteers thank me for letting them be a part of it because it's such a special project and it's, a feel-good project. You are doing something significant. To this date, we've served 417 families.
And you all hit a real bump in the road just a few years ago with the fire, but you were doing that even before the fire came. Talk about what made you pivot to helping others.
Well, you're right. It was a different project at first. We had a homeless situation. We had over 200 homeless in our small corner of the world here in Lahaina. And so we just started out by giving them food and tarps and resources like where to go get your license, where to get an insurance card. We would take them to the doctor and pick them up from the hospital. We would get them into rehab or a domestic violence safe house or whatever it was they needed. So that was our focus. After the fire, our focus became, we have thousands more people now homeless. I was just looking at the numbers. There were over 2,800 applications for housing for 700 places. So it was really crazy. And so we realized a year after, when people were getting out of the hotels and moving into these tiny homes, or the temporary housing or whatever it is they could find, all of their belongings were gone. They literally were starting from nothing. And you know how expensive it is to start a household. They had nothing, no sheets, no pots and pans, no pillows, no cleaning supplies, no beds, chairs. So that's what we focused on, and that's what we raised money for. And I was lucky enough to be able to write some grants, and we got over $350,000 in grant money, most of which we're at the very end right now. So we're writing some more grants and doing some more fundraising, but we have made a difference and we're thrilled.
Yeah. When you say you make a difference, then it's kind of understanding what the needs are and then moving forward. And your path has kind of zigged and zagged as you moved along in order to fulfill the needs of others.
I say
Yes.
that she's a master. I say she's a master at meeting people where they are. She
Mhm.
doesn't judge first. She meets right where you are, and then how can I help you from there? And that's very important for people who are in need, because if somebody's looking down at them, it's not helpful. But if you're meeting me right where I'm at and you're saying, okay, this is who I am and this is what I have to offer, how can I help you? That's a much more beautiful statement, and it's much more acceptable for someone who is in need.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, I agree. And you know, one of the things that really made this a family project, it feels like, is that we all went through the same thing. We all lived through the fire. We all lost scores of people. Thousands had to move off island. It's been a life altering event. I don't know about other people, but for me, life was one thing before the fire and another after the fire. And I was blessed enough to not have my home burnt. So we come from a place of ohana, of family, and we're there to support each other. Um, the families, when we deliver to them, they tell their stories. We all cry and hug. We exchange numbers, and we keep in touch after, a lot of us. It's really a special project. And after over 40 years of working in nonprofits, it's really been the most amazing experience.
Yeah, caregiving at its best.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, so often with the book Voices of Care, a lot of it leans toward the needs of people with mental problems. But there are so many people who just have problems in general that you are helping. Like you said, getting their license, getting insurance, getting the materials that they need in order to move forward, and getting grants. And it makes such a difference. Your volunteers are amazing and lifesavers. How did, is it a guilt thing that they have, or is it just the need to do more and being grateful for what they have and sharing it?
I think it is a huge group of people with heart here on the West Side. We have 3 or 4 chapters of the Rotary itself right here in Little Lahaina. So we have groups
Mm.
and groups of people wanting to serve, wanting to help. Every time I put out a call for volunteers, I'll say I have 12 families to deliver to. I need help on this day between these hours. And I am inundated with emails and texts. I want to help. I want to be there. I don't think it's guilt. I think, especially here in West Maui and Lahaina and in Maui, um, we feel like Ohana, and people really stepped up after the fire. It was amazing. 2 days after the fire, we had no cell service, no email, no nothing, but somehow the word got around. Everybody's got to go to the beach because people from other islands were sailing in supplies. We had nothing. We couldn't get to the other side. It was scary. And we all went down there and we did like a fireman's line, taking the supplies off the boat and taking them up and then distributing them to the various distribution centers. The feeling in Lahaina has changed since the fire, for sure. And these people that are volunteering for Aloha Ranch, they just want to be part of the healing process.
Let's talk about Aloha Ranch, because that within itself is such a grounding foundation for what you do, and explain to folks about Aloha Ranch.
Well, it's a nonprofit. Nobody gets a dime. Every single person who serves us, including myself, we don't take any money. 100% of what we collect goes to our families and the supplies that they need. We really are a task force of sorts. We aren't necessarily only helping the homeless. We started as Women Helping Women and then morphed to the West Maui Task Force. So we still have a strong orientation toward families and education and scholarships and things like that. So it's just been since the fire that this has really been our focus. But certainly, I get requests almost every day from the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations here on Maui, asking how Aloha Ranch can help their clients. And so our name has really got out there. And if the United Way can get somebody a bed, but they can't get them a dining set, then they ask me. So we've really all come together as agencies, and there's no politics, there's no divisiveness, there's no anything but love and giving. And how can we help? It's really been fantastic.
It sounds like it.
Maui at its best. That's who we are. That's the reason why Maui is the only place I ever moved back to. Because after I left, I couldn't get it out of my spirit. I couldn't. And it was just that sense of ohana. On Maui, what people don't know is most people who live in multi-generational homes, the native people here, the people who are from Maui. And that's why Denise is helping caregivers take care of caregivers, because all of those people live with their grandmothers, their children. If you're taking care of your children, you're taking care of yourself, and you're taking care of your parents. You are a caregiver at the very root of what caregiving is. And a lot of people just haven't identified it. So I think when we really look at what caregiving is, what Denise's organization does, that's the root of caregiving, caring for the family at its very root. And that's how caregiving starts.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to talk about it. And you mentioned the traditional Hawaiian family. It's interesting that the traditional Hawaiian family lived in a situation that they called kauhale. There was a house to eat in, and a house for all of the activities, and a house to cook in, and a house for single men, and a house for families. And they all came together in a community type of situation. Kauhale, the traditional extended family form of the Hawaiian culture. Well, after the fire, the tiny homes that popped up were built in a Kauhale spirit, and it's everyone coming together. It's government coming together as well as private contractors and philanthropists and community members. Everyone pitches in and work on it together. And that's what you'll find up at Kala'iola, one of the tiny home villages that we represent, or that we serve. I'm sorry. There are 450 tiny homes up there, and they're arranged in small pods. And each pod has its own laundry and its own little picnic area and barbecues. But it really is in the spirit of the traditional Hawaiian kauhale. And it's been fantastic for healing, because everyone up there has lost their home without exception. And so we've heard of trauma bonding, right? The trauma bonding up there is they've formed literally a new community of survivors, and it's really touching.
Where do you get your tiny homes from? Because, we hear about it, but it's like, well, how do we get those? How do we
Right.
find out more?
Well, at Kala'iola Village, as I said, it was a coming together of many different businesses and government organizations and private entities. So there were 4 different contractors that donated, not fully donated, but, at a very low expense. So there's 4 different types of tiny homes up there. Some of them came from Korea, others came from China, others came from the mainland. So it's all over, but I've been looking, and the tiny home um, manufacturers are really stepping up, and things are getting cheaper and cheaper to build, and which is really, really exciting, especially for here because we're out of money.
Yeah, more grant writing for you, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Always. The other thing I realize just in reading and learning about a lot of things is women have a tendency to step forward quicker than most men. And you find that that is, again, a base for much of what is going on is the women. It's kind of like, they say the mama's the head of the household, a happy life, a happy wife. And so you find that um, those women are the ones who are stirring the pot to help others.
Right. Well, we women have no choice. You're gonna give birth, you're gonna give birth, and there's no putting it off or hemming and hawing, refusing. It's gonna happen. And so I think we're a little more in tune with what has to happen, despite the fact you don't necessarily want to do it. There's a lot of things we don't want to do. So I think we step up to do the hard things, especially when it comes to caregiving, especially when it comes to a person, especially a child, in danger or that needs help. Uh, I don't know. I think, I'm a nurture and nature kind of gal. I think that there's a strong biological impetus for women to help.
Coming from a men's perspective, I think men aren't traditionally taught how to take care of a home. And so I'm talking about traditional training. Men these days have much more training in how to take care of homes. And so they've become much more empathetic when it comes to those types of chores, where men maybe 20 or 30 years ago, they didn't even understand what a woman did in the kitchen. So their empathy was very, very minimal. So I think that as we develop as people, we all become much more empathetic. But I think men aren't traditionally given the same tools as women for coping and for coping with household, because household's a whole different thing than finance, which men are
Absolutely. I
much
think
better at.
that's a great point, and that speaks to the nurture end of it. I used to always tell
Mm-hmm.
my students when I taught about sex and gender that we have certain biological predispositions that are then overlaid with culture. So you might be a college frat boy wanting to spread your seed, but you've been taught how to behave. You've been taught that that's not okay. So yeah, there is that nature versus nurture, and I see it too, that men are definitely being taught more, not only how to nurture, but really to embrace their emotions and to not avoid them, because to care for a sick family member, you're going to deal with emotions. You're going to unpack things that you didn't think you were going to unpack.
And
And
I think
it's
for men, it's hard sometimes to unpack that. I'll give one example. I was at a senior fair, and an older gentleman, a little bit older than me, so I can call him an older gentleman, came over to me, and he just looked so sad. And he came over, and I was sitting in the AARP booth, and we just started having a conversation. And he was telling me about his day, and he said he was taking care of his mother, and he didn't really know how to, but he was doing the very best that he could. And he had just stepped out of the house to walk to the mall. And when he went to the mall, he didn't even know the senior fair was there, but he was walking around, and he just was so good to walk and talk to other people because he had been isolated also in his caregiving venture. And he said to me simply, I wish that somebody would have given me better tools to deal. And he said, I don't even know how to cry.
oh,
And um, we both looked at each other, started like waters in our eyes. And he held my hand, and I could see that he was crying, but he was holding back, holding back, holding back. 20 minutes later, he came back and he said, I took a walk. I went to see my mother, and I had to come back and tell you, you released my empathy. You allowed me to feel empathy for myself, because no one ever told me that it was okay for me to feel sorry for myself and be okay with that. So,
wow,
yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, you have to give yourself grace, and you have
grace.
to be willing to do it, and feel you deserve it. I mean, there's just so much guilt and regrets, right? When somebody you love is dying, you go through it all and you have to give yourself grace.
Denise, what was the button that pushed that said, this is what else I'm supposed to be doing? Because you didn't start out necessarily as a caregiver. Like you said, you were a teacher. So what was that one button that was pushed that made this?
Necessity. It happened. It happened, and it's in your family, and you don't choose it. You step up to it, I think.
That sounds good. Well, listen, let's again talk about Aloha Ranch Lahaina and explain how people can give and maybe some of your needs at this point.
Okay, so one of the things that we do is we only give our families brand new items. And so we don't collect donations. And the reason for that is because the first year after the fire, all of our survivors who were in and out of hotel rooms were getting donated items and used this and used that and stained sheets. And so we felt it really important when we started Hotels to Hales, the campaign that focused on this to begin with, is to give with dignity, and not only a fresh start, but a clean start, only your stuff. And that became very significant and important after a year of having used things and things that weren't yours. And so what we do is collect money. I write grants and we collect donations, and you can donate right on aloharanchLahaina.org, or you can email me and we can figure out however way you want to donate. We also have a website that explains more about what we do and who we are.
Yeah, your website is magnificent. It's so clean, so nice, and it's easy to understand. And people know that if they go there, they're going to be making a difference.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Carl?
So one more thing that I wanted to talk about was the ashes know her name. Because she's written your first book. I know you're in the process of writing a second book, but I'm just hearing such great reviews on The Ashes Know Her Name. So tell me all about The Ashes Know Her Name.
Okay, so The Ashes Know Her Name is my debut fiction novel. I've been publishing in academia since 1989, but that's all research and textbooks and nothing that anybody wants to read unless you're literally taking my class. So this has been a big change for me. I always wanted to write fiction. I always wrote short stories and journaled and things like that. But The Ashes Know Her Name is actually born right out of the Lahaina fires and what happened 2 months later, October 7th in Israel. So I have family in Israel. I have family that was there on October 7th. I have friends and family that were kidnapped and murdered that day. And that's just 2 months after the Lahaina fires, where, hundreds of people were significantly affected, if not killed. The official count is 102. Everyone who knows here knows that the official count of deceased is much higher. That count is actually based on police reports. So if you did make a police report because your whole family, just perished in a fire, those people weren't counted in those statistics. And so locally, we know the score. So I wanted to get that out there, but I wanted to do it through fiction. I wanted to teach people something, and they didn't know they were being taught, through entertainment, through fiction. So I wrote Ashes out of a place of grief. And apparently it reads that way because it's had an outstanding welcome. I currently have 171 five-star reviews on Goodreads. I just signed with a literary agent, and I have a publishing house that I'm in talks with, housing the entire series because there's more books to come with them. So I think the thing that is touching people is the heart, the emotion. My scholarly background in trauma and identity and watching it play out in the minds of people who are just trying to move past, uh, in my book's case, a terrorist attack and a fire. So in the book, one family experiences both of those things, and they're just struggling with the stacked trauma or the complex trauma. Um, and really, it's a psychological treatment of grief and how to move on and how to love again.
Mm. How to release that grief and, like you said, move on, become whole again.
I
And
like that stack. I like that stacked trauma thing because that's what I just heard, and I read the book, of course, and I knew there was something that I was feeling, but I didn't know why I related to it the way that I did. And exactly, we're all dealing with stacked trauma, and if you, yeah, right, you won. And so when you read something where you're expressing and your eyes are reading and your heart is feeling at the same time, you can't help but connect this way to what you're reading. It's not just from your ear, from your eyes to your ears to your brain. It's more from your eyes to your heart when you're reading that, because we all have that trauma stacked up, and it just chips away a little bit and helps us heal a little bit. So it's a
It
beautiful.
does.
Mm,
Yeah, it's like a barrel that's filling up little by little with all your traumatic events, and eventually your barrel's going to overflow and you're going to need to deal with it. And that's what we do in not only Ashes, but in my next book, Snowfall's Reckoning. It's the same characters, the same flawed, struggling characters dealing with, of course, complex trauma. But then we have a whole new storyline with a new family. And I explore specifically childhood trauma and what happens if you have childhood trauma, how that plays out as an adult. And again, your ability to love and to heal and to open yourself up and to trust. Really, trust is a lot of it, because when you experience trauma, especially complex, ongoing trauma, you are shut down and you don't want to trust anything, because everything you've ever trusted is, it seems like it's going to blow up in your face. So trust is really important here.
all right. Where can people get the book?
Oh, it's on Amazon. It's Audibles. You can download the ebook on Amazon as well, and anywhere who major booksellers.
Mm. And it's The Ashes Know Her Name.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's you're exciting and you're putting it out there for people to heal, aren't you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
Mm.
much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right.
well, we appreciate you.
Very much so. Once again, it's Denise Nussbaum, and she is with, you can find more about it at Aloha Ranch Lahaina.org. Thank you so much. Wonderful
All right.
meeting you. And
Thank you.
maybe I'll get back to Lahaina and Maui one day so I can meet you in person.
We would love to have you.
Yeah, I wish you continued blessings and much success.
Thank you so much, Maggie. You as well.
Aloha.
Aloha.